happens when you connect the ideas and energies and talents of artists with the needs and opportunities of communities. I was lucky to get an opportunity to do that kind of imagining when I was fresh out of college in Minneapolis back in 1977. I was one of 60 artists in a CETA program, a federal job training program, that put artists to work part-time in their studios and part-time in the community. And I was lucky enough to get this job title, Gallery Director of City Art Productions, which was pretty heady. I had a desk and a phone at City Hall at the Minneapolis Arts Commission, and they said, Jack, there's just one catch. There is no gallery. They said, the city is your gallery, and your job is to organize exhibits of CETA artists at the parks and plazas and government centers and libraries in the city. Now, here's your desk and phone, now go for it. And wow, it was an energizing job I wasn't necessarily qualified for, but I learned pretty quickly because of my experience in the arts, both a little bit of theater and in the visual arts, that bureaucracy is an art form too. It's a little bit like found object sculpture, you know? You've got all the raw material around you in the city to put things together to make things happen. And not only did I have the raw material of places in the city and the people and the businesses and industries, but there were 60 artists in the program, and all I needed to do was connect. And I found that I was pretty good at it, and I started to learn something about public art in the process and the power that artists bring to the public art equation in combination with communities. I learned that public art is more than murals, monuments, and memorials, or the occasional mime. In fact, public art is visible evidence of our shared humanity, you know, and you can tell a lot about a place by the kind of public art they have. It's kind of like a cultural barometer, or in some cases, the absence of public art tells you something about the values of the community. I learned that public art can be top-down, where the people with the money commission artists to do what they want them to do, or it can be bottom-up, where artists and community members and collaborators from different sectors work together to create the kind of public art that they want in the community and serve needs that are unmet. And they become creative problem solvers and actually become valued in their communities in ways that, well, the top-down model doesn't always convey. I learned that public art can be a process as well as a product. It can be visual, it can be performative. In fact, public artists get to write their own job descriptions. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? So an artist like Yvette Materne uses the whole city of Tulsa as her canvas for this global rainbow she created recently to help celebrate the opening of a new park on the riverfront in Tulsa. This was a project that could be seen not only all over Tulsa, but from as far away as Oklahoma City. This got people talking in conversation. Not only that, it was easy to find out where the park was because you just followed the global rainbow to where it started. Yvette Materne, a Puerto Rican artist, has found a voice in public art in a way that most artists might not think about, right? She's not a sculptor or painter. But she has a way of bringing community together and giving a vision to a community and giving people something to talk about that takes their minds off of some of the other things they're dealing with in the community. Well, after being in the CETA program myself, there really wasn't a job to step into. But I knew that I was good at connecting artists and community, and so with some of the CETA artists that I was engaged with, we started a nonprofit organization. And that was 40 years ago, this year. We're celebrating 40 years. And basically, we have grants for artists, and we do facilitation of communities that want to connect with artists. And we publish a public art review magazine because we realized that telling the stories of what artists are doing in the public realm is one way not only artists learn how they can expand their horizons, but communities can get a better idea of, beyond murals, monuments, and memorials, what can they possibly benefit in terms of artists helping as creative problem solvers in their communities. Now, this didn't stop me from practicing some of my own art, but I'll be honest with you, it was easier for me to make money helping other artists get projects done than finding money to support my own art. But I found a couple of low-cost kinds of projects that I could do that helped engage audiences in active ways. So one of the early projects back in 1984, a bunch of us took over some spaces in Lowertown in St. Paul, and I discovered this elevator in the Market House building where it was an interior space that had been gutted, an old warehouse. And I noticed when the elevator was up in the building, this is a glass elevator, the bar on top of the elevator was right next to these big beams in the building. And when the elevator was down, I kept thinking, wonder if there's a way to connect the beams with the elevator. And using remnant material like elastic, I created this sculpture with 80 strands of elastic, cost $125. It went up and down, that's all it did, but it was activated by people pushing the button in the elevator. If you were sitting in the atrium, you didn't know when the elevator would go up and down. So I titled this piece, Attention Span. And the building owner loved it, but what happened was 2 weeks later, the elevator repairman showed up and he freaked out. Like, what is this? He complained to the building owner, what is this lingerie tied to the elevator? You're going to have to take that down right away. And the owner said, no, I love it, leave it. It stays here. And he goes, look, you either take that down or we're going to have to cancel your maintenance contract. And the building owner, one of the best compliments I ever had, said, go ahead and cancel it. So the word got around back at the elevator company that this building owner was going to cancel his maintenance contract over some rubber bands attached to the elevator, and word got around to the marketing person at the elevator company. She had to come see for herself what was causing all the hubbub. And I got this phone call out of the blue, and she said, are you the artist that did this elevator sculpture in the Market House building? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I've been watching it and looking at it. It's really fun and engaging. Do you have any photos of it? So I sent her some slides, because back in those days, that's what you use, little slides. And the next thing I knew, it was on the cover of Elevator World magazine. Yeah, I thought... I'm glad you appreciate that, because I thought I had a career in doing elevator sculptures. And I know you all read Elevator World magazine. Another early project, which was really simple again, it's a bucket and a rope and a bridge, and you tie one end of the rope to the railing and the other end to the bucket. And when you're standing on the Stone Arch Bridge, you can throw the bucket into the air, down into the Mississippi River, and the rope's just long enough to be able to pull a bucket of water up from the river. I call it a do-it-yourself fountain, or DIY fountain, and I found that it wasn't something I needed to do, I just needed to set it up for other people. So it was kind of like a cultural anthropology experiment to have this bucket and rope and watch people pull the rope and pull the bucket of water up, and it's a lot of weight, right? It's work. But then there's other people watching, and they want to do that. What are you doing? Well, I'm pulling a bucket up. Why are you pulling it up? Is there fish in there? What's going on? Or are you checking the quality of the water? And it's really interesting, the conversations that got started around that. And what happens is you get your bucket of water up there, and you can throw the water out into the air and make your own fountain. And so anytime you want to try that, just go buy a bucket and a rope. No copyright on this project. But again, it led me to understand more about the interactions that artists can create among people and the interactivity and the conversations and what they can lead to. I've admired a lot of other artists and projects, and as you know, storytelling about public art has been my thing. And this is just some examples of what are other artists doing in communities to help build community and make connections. Jack Mackey did this incredible series of dance instruction steps embedded in the sidewalks in Seattle. Okay? People come upon them and they want to start following the dance moves because it's right out of the Arthur Murphy dance instruction book, right? So imagine, if you will, a couple out on their first date. They come upon this dance instructions in the sidewalk. What happens? Well, let's try dancing. What could happen from that? They could fall in love, get married, have kids. So don't ever think that even a small-scale public art project can't change somebody's life. Or here's a bench, and it happens to sit in the exact midpoint between downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul. The Twin Cities, right? So it's called sibling rivalry bench. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minneapolis. I'm right in the middle here. Or have you ever seen an art car parade? All right. Well, you all get to participate, right? It isn't just artists that help make our world a better place. We all get to decorate our cars and be in art car parades. In fact, you know, we all are part of the public art equation, right? We're all in the choir. Admittedly, some people have better voices than others, and Jan Elfman knows how to create a great art car. Or Heart of the Beast Puppet and Mass Theater do this incredible May Day parade every year. Hundreds of people participate and are in the parade and create their costumes and perform. And thousands of people come and watch the parade and end up at a festival at the end of the day. It's an annual event that is so successful. And I think they're tapping into the trend of participatory culture. We don't just want to look at public art, we want to be part of it. We want to be part of a flash mob or a parade. We want to make something happen. We're in a democracy. And I think public art is a way of personifying democracy. Now here's a mural at the Sheridan School in Northeast that just got completed, and it's a marvel. These artists didn't just come in and paint a pretty picture on the outside of the school building. They worked with every student in the school to help come up with the themes and the concepts and the imagery that would go on this mural, which it's a magnet school for the performing arts. And it tells the story of what's going on in the school to the community as a whole. And not in a small way. This is a huge mural. And it changed not only the school and the pride that the students had in their school, but in the community around the school and their pride in what this building was, that maybe they just didn't know what was going on inside. Candy Chang is another artist I love and admire, and she's a TED Fellow and somebody you ought to look up. She has this DIY mural project called Before I Die, and it's basically you can order online a stencil kit, and you get blackboard paint, and you cover a wall or put plywood up, and then you stencil on these stencils that say, before I die, I want to, and you get to fill in the blank. And there's a cup with chalk mounted to the mural, and it's kind of like, you know, hello, my name is, and you fill in the blank. Well, if you put one of these up in any community, within a few hours it's filled up, and people are talking to each other, and they're seeing what's on each other's bucket lists. And it's an incredible community building activity that the artist has set up. So it's not about the artist as the author of an artwork. It's about the artist as creating a voice for the community. And if you erase this, it'll be only a few more days and it'll fill up again. This is Amanda Lovely and her partner who worked with Public Art St. Paul and the City of St. Paul and the planning department that often has problems trying to get people to show up to community meetings to help inform the planning that they do at the city. And Amanda's brilliant creativity says, why don't we take the planning to the community where they are? And she repurposed a city vehicle, turned it into a pop-up community engagement tool where they actually set up a popsicle stand and offered, you know, in exchange for your input for some questions about what are your issues and concerns and desires for the city, thank you, here's a pop. And so this notion of bringing the questions to the community instead of hoping they're going to come to the city hall was an incredibly effective way for city planners in St. Paul to learn and gain insight from many of the unheard voices in their community. So this is about equity and inclusion. I thought I'd throw in a slide of a giant white polar bear. I mean, we're just in the neighborhood where there are big white polar bears and white bears, and this one happens to be a really interesting project by a Santa Fe artist, Don Cannell, and it's called Longview, and the bear is made up of used car hoods, hundreds of them. It's 36 feet high. And this polar bear is standing up, getting the long view, and the car hoods are representative of the carbon emissions that are affecting climate change and the habitats for animals like polar bears. And the polar bear is asking us all to take the long view and think long out ahead. And as you know, the farther up you go, the farther you can see. Well, this bear was so popular, they invited it to come to San Francisco for the Global Climate Summit action. And it made the cover of the newspaper with the headline, "Taking Action." This is the kind of impact that artists can have, not only in communities, but on a global scale, to raise awareness of issues that need more visibility and more of a voice. I have one more project I want to tell you about, and it's a compelling one. There was an artist, Joel Sisson, who lived in a South Minneapolis neighborhood that was a pretty tough neighborhood. There was a lot of crime and drugs and gang members, and these young people in the community created some fear in the neighborhood. And Joel found himself walking down the sidewalk and feeling fear when some youth were walking toward him, to the point where he felt like he needed to cross the street to avoid a confrontation. And he thought after a moment, what am I going to do? I either face my fear and do something about it, or I get out of this neighborhood. And Joel's approach was unique for a couple of reasons, but by chance, a week later, one of the chairs in his backyard went missing. And he had this unusual thought, well, somebody stole my chair. People must really need chairs. Of course, it was all misunderstanding, but that sparked an idea for him to set up a chair-making workshop in his backyard and hire the youth from his community that he had a fear of and pay them a wage to build these chairs in his backyard, these Adirondack chairs, okay? Lots of Adirondack chairs. And he asked one of the youth to find some paint to paint it with, and he found this unusual kind of apple green paint, and he started painting the chairs, and before Joel knew it, all these chairs were this unusual green color. So he said, so what? We have a goal now. We're going to put these chairs on the front lawns of our neighbors' yards. And not just right on this block, but the next block down. And we're going to do it early in the morning before people wake up. So one morning, I think it was a Sunday morning, people in the neighborhood woke up and they looked outside, and imagine what they thought. We just got a gift of 2 green Adirondack chairs. And so did our neighbors. And so did their neighbor. And all the way down the block and the next block. And I imagine some people thought everybody in the city got 2 green chairs. And then they looked closer because they were just sitting out on the, the boulevard there. But there was a tag on them that said, "These are a gift for you." Well, they had to wonder, who gave us these gifts? And then they took their chairs and they arranged them in their yards. And they had conversations with their neighbors, and nobody knew. But they used the chairs to keep an eye on the neighborhood. And eventually they learned it was the youth in the neighborhood that had created the chairs as gifts for them, which started to change their perceptions of the youth and what they could do. And Joel started a little factory of making more chairs because he wanted to spread this idea around. And he got it in his mind, I want to put 1,000 green chairs on the front lawn of our state capitol for just one day. And that happened in 1996. 1,000 green chairs on the front lawn of the state capitol. Then he wanted to build big chairs and more little chairs and bring them to the nation's capital, which he did. And he worked with students at a school there and brought the kids from Minneapolis. And the Green Chair Project is an incredible example. And they made a kit, and the kids showed how the kit worked so you could have your own Green Chair Project in your community. So, as you can see, artists have the ability to help build community, but you all have the opportunity in the public art equation. You're all part of it. And what can you do to make sure that you're taking advantage of this incredible natural resource? You can invite artists to the table. They'll bring ideas you might not think about, spark conversations that haven't been had yet, raise awareness of issues that maybe nobody else wants to talk about. They think outside the box. You can support their development because, let's face it, a lot of the educational system that brings artists into the world are still about making objects to sell. And what we're talking about is social engagement and process. and surfacing value in the community. And you can help run your city's involvement with your community by putting artists to work not only in residence in city halls and in schools and in social service organizations and anywhere you can think of. And my message to you for today is, let's put more public in public art.